The assassin Leon always brought a child with him on missions. People thought a 12-year-old would be a burden, but Mathilda was incredibly smart and sharp for her age. Their teamwork was truly perfect. Leon was responsible for cutting the burglar alarm on the door, while Mathilda pretended to be a lost girl knocking. This unexpected trick worked effectively, causing the assassination target to let his guard down and open the door. However, when Leon captured the target, he didn't act immediately. Instead, he instructed the target to step aside and let Mathilda practice shooting with a toy gun first. Leon taught Mathilda that the first shot should incapacitate the target, and only then could she finish him off with the second shot. Importantly, she was never to shoot the target in the face, as damaging the face would make identification impossible, preventing them from reporting back to their employer. The conversation between Leon and Mathilda left the target frozen. Just when the drug lord thought Leon and Mathilda were only trying to scare him, Leon silently took him out. You might wonder why a 12-year-old girl would become an assassin. To find the answer, let's go back to the first time Leon met Mathilda. That day, when Mathilda returned home, she found an assassin standing right at her door, with her father's body lying on the ground. To save herself, Mathilda suppressed her fear and sorrow, bowing her head as she walked past. The assassin had no idea that Mathilda was terrified and on the verge of tears as she reached the end of the hallway. She rang the neighbor's doorbell, pleading for help, unaware that the man inside was also a top professional assassin. Mathilda's pleas put Leon in a difficult position. He didn't want to get involved, but knew that if he didn't open the door, Mathilda would surely die. After a moment of inner conflict, he decided to open the door to save her. As Leon swung the door open, the light of life illuminated Mathilda's face, dispelling the despair in her heart. The assassin watching Mathilda let his guard down. However, one of the assassin's accomplices soon noticed something unusual through a photo album. After comparing it with the bodies at the scene, the two assassins realized that a girl had escaped. This revelation raised suspicion in the lookout assassin. He approached Leon's door, listening for any sounds inside. Leon was ready to take out the assassin at any moment. Just then, Mathilda unexpectedly turned on the TV to watch cartoons. The sound from the TV dispelled the assassin's doubts. The reason the assassins had killed Mathilda's family was that her father had hidden Stansfield's goods. Stansfield was a drug enforcement officer, but he abused his position, colluding with his subordinates to engage in illegal activities. On Leon's side, seeing Mathilda cry in anguish filled him with sympathy, but Mathilda's sorrow was solely for her 4-year-old brother. The deaths of everyone else meant nothing to her. She had always been treated unjustly within her own family. Just because Mathilda switched her sister's exercise channel to cartoons, her sister violently attacked her. Mathilda's stepmother was a famous dancer in a nightclub. Every day, Mathilda was given endless tasks and had to endure harsh insults from her stepmother. Even her biological father paid her no attention. When he was in a bad mood, he would take out his frustration on Mathilda, adding new wounds to her face before the old ones had a chance to heal. The only person Mathilda felt close to was her little brother. For Mathilda, her desperate life was like a storm drowning her in endless darkness. Besides her younger brother, her neighbor Leon was a friend she cherished. Whenever she saw him, she would greet him enthusiastically. There was an inexplicable bond she felt with this strange man, as Leon was the only one who helped her hide her flaws from her parents. Moreover, he was the only person who ever inquired about the wounds on her face. Despite Mathilda's lies about falling off her bike, Leon knew the truth. She was beaten every day. Each time he passed by her house, he would hear the piercing shouts and insults echoing from within. Leon's life was just as lonely as Mathilda's. As a top professional assassin in the city, he carried many deadly weapons with him. No matter how dangerous the missions assigned by his boss were, Leon always completed them successfully and withdrew safely. However, Leon had his own professional code. He never targeted women or children. His only companion was a potted peace lily, which had been by his side for years. Leon lived alone, and aside from his boss and Mathilda, he never spoke to any strangers. At night, he would place his gun on the nearest table and doze off on the sofa to endure the long, sleepless nights. As an assassin, he had to always be ready for a fight. Everyday life left Leon feeling extremely isolated. To escape his loneliness, he occasionally visited the cinema by himself. Although the dances and songs on screen could bring him brief moments of joy, there was no one beside him to share that happiness. That day, after watching a movie, Leon returned home to find Mathilda being beaten by her family, her nose bleeding. He quietly handed her a handkerchief. Mathilda looked at Leon, seeing him as cold yet kind, and in that moment, she felt as if she had found a companion in this lonely world. Back in reality, Leon asked Mathilda if she had any other relatives to rely on, but she simply shook her head in silence. While Leon went inside, Mathilda's curiosity led her to open the suitcase on the table. Inside were various weapons of different sizes, instantly revealing Leon's true profession to her. As soon as Leon stepped out, Mathilda asked him what he did for a living. Leon replied that he was a cleaner. Mathilda sarcastically remarked, "Are you a cleaner of dead bodies?" Leon was taken aback by her comment, but Mathilda showed no fear. Instead, she boldly proposed a deal. She wanted Leon to teach her how to be an assassin, and in return, she would cook and clean for him. To her surprise, Leon flatly refused. His steadfast principle was not to harm women and children. Despite his rejection, Mathilda displayed a serious attitude and determination. Leon told Mathilda that she had gone through too much today and needed a good night's sleep, suggesting they could deal with everything else tomorrow. He offered her the bedroom and even thoughtfully brought her a blanket. No one had ever treated Mathilda so kindly before. This small gesture was enough for her to feel a warmth she had never experienced. Mathilda reached out and took Leon's hand, but he was clearly uncomfortable with such a gesture. That night, Leon tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He couldn't accept that Mathilda had barged into his life. As a professional assassin, he wouldn't allow anyone to become a burden on him. He even entered her room, gun drawn, aimed at the sleeping Mathilda. But after a moment of hesitation, he couldn't bring himself to harm a child. In the stillness of the night, two lonely souls allowed the darkness to envelop them. The next morning, Leon told Mathilda to have breakfast and then leave quickly. However, Mathilda looked at him with determination and declared that her dream was to become an assassin. Hearing this, Leon handed her a handgun and some bullets, saying it was a parting gift. He just wanted to rid himself of that tale. But Mathilda responded that professional assassins never acted alone. Mathilda was determined to be Leon's perfect companion. Leon, frustrated, reminded her that he had treated her well and even saved her life the day before. He urged her not to follow him anymore, but Mathilda countered, saying that since Leon saved her, he had to take responsibility for her. She argued that if he abandoned her now, it would be as if he had let her die the day before when he opened the door. Leon found himself at a loss for words. Mathilda pressed on, stating that if he refused, she would die that night. She had a premonition and did not want to meet her end this evening. Leon insisted that she was just a child and could never become an assassin. However, Mathilda's next action left him speechless. To prove her determination, she fired all the bullets out of the window, causing chaos in the street below. With that decisive act, Mathilda successfully convinced Leon to take her in. However, their actions necessitated an immediate move. Leon grew increasingly irritated. What had started as a good deed to save Mathilda had turned into a burden he never anticipated. Though Leon saw Mathilda as a tale, her presence also had unexpected benefits. Mathilda and Leon entered a small inn, intending to rent a room, but the owner refused them. Noticing Leon carrying a violin case, the innkeeper mentioned that the sound of the violin would disturb other guests. Unbeknownst to the innkeeper, the case contained a hidden arsenal of weapons. Leon stood there, unsure of how to respond. Fortunately, Mathilda quickly came to his rescue. She spun a tale, claiming that Leon was her father and that she was preparing for an entrance exam to a music academy, needing to practice. Mathilda's persuasive speech convinced the innkeeper, who agreed to arrange a room for them together, ensuring they wouldn't disturb anyone. When the innkeeper asked Leon to fill out the registration form, he hesitated, revealing that he couldn't read. Mathilda stepped in to help, filling out the form for him. Once they were in the room, Leon immediately began checking every corner. This was a habit he had developed over years as an assassin. He needed to know his surroundings and plot an escape route in case of danger. Meanwhile, Mathilda mischievously wrote the name of the classmate she disliked the most on the registration form. This way, if anything went wrong during their stay, the responsibility would fall on the person she despised. At that moment, Leon suddenly asked Mathilda how old she was. She lied, claiming she was 18, not wanting him to continue seeing her as a child. Then, she moved closer to him and expressed her desire to become strong and smart like him. Mathilda knew she couldn't convince Leon to teach her how to kill, so she said she wanted to learn how to use a gun for self-defense in the future. This left Leon with no reason to refuse her. The next day, he approached the boss and requested a beginner's gun. The boss was surprised. Why would a top assassin like Leon want a toy meant for novices? Leon quickly made up an excuse. Although the boss had no idea what Leon intended to do, he decided to fulfill the request. Leon took Mathilda up to the rooftop. This was the first lesson he would teach her. The rifle was the first weapon a beginner had to learn, as it allowed the shooter to maintain distance from the target. The more professional an assassin became, the closer they needed to get to their target. Therefore, learning how to use knives and heavier weapons would be the final skills Mathilda needed to master. After explaining this, Leon positioned Mathilda. However, she hurriedly opened the scope. Seeing this, Leon quickly closed the scope cover, reminding her not to open it until the last moment. The reflected light from the lens could easily reveal their position. The target could be seen by Mathilda from a mile away, and she had to remember to wear dark clothing that wouldn't stand out against the ground. With everything ready, they began searching for a practice target. Soon, a well-dressed man jogging appeared within their sight. Under Leon's guidance, Mathilda quickly locked onto the target. Leon instructed her to breathe lightly, observe the man's movements, and imagine that she was running alongside him. She focused intently on the man's heartbeat and silently waited for Leon's next command. Eventually, Mathilda succeeded in taking her first shot. The man's bodyguards panicked, but Mathilda was not satisfied. She wanted to try using live ammunition. As expected, Leon refused her request. From that point on, Leon began teaching Mathilda the principles of how guns work. He showed her how to assemble and disassemble firearms. Mathilda diligently exercised every day with Leon to improve her physical fitness. She also kept her promise to take care of Leon's living conditions, doing the laundry, cooking, and cleaning the house. Mathilda's presence made Leon's life much more lively and enjoyable. However, However, there was one thing that Mathilda was unhappy about. Leon always forced her to drink milk, which she despised. At night, Mathilda slept in the bed in the bedroom, while Leon continued to sleep on the sofa, as he always had. During the day, whenever she had the time, Mathilda taught Leon how to read and write. As days passed, she became proficient in using various firearms. Yet no matter how much she pleaded, Leon refused to take her on any missions. Over time, Mathilda grew bored staying at home. To lighten the mood, she began finding ways to make Leon laugh, gradually bridging the gap between them. Today marked a significant moment. Leon officially entrusted Mathilda with a potted Dieffenbachia plant. This gesture symbolized his complete trust in her. However, Mathilda still had a lingering question. She was curious about why Leon cherished the plant so much. Leon explained that the Dieffenbachia was his best friend. It was always cheerful and never complained, much like himself. Mathilda, ever the clever one, retorted that if Leon truly cared for the plant, he should plant it in a part where it could thrive. Mathilda's suggestion that the Dieffenbachia should be planted in a part so it could grow its own roots resonated with Leon. He pondered this idea and seemed to agree with her perspective. From that day forward, the two of them enjoyed their time together, creating joyful memories. They set aside their worries and anxieties, embracing a relaxed atmosphere that allowed them to rediscover the beauty of life. Unbeknownst to them, Mathilda had become someone Leon deeply cared for, someone he couldn't bear to be apart from. One day, Leon approached the boss. It turned out that all the money Leon had earned during his years as an assassin had been entrusted to the innkeeper for safekeeping. In the past, Leon hadn't been able to fill out bank forms due to his illiteracy. However, this time, Leon suddenly told the boss that if he ever needed to access that money, he hoped the boss would return it in full. The innkeeper, curious, asked if Leon had a girlfriend. He recalled that when Leon first arrived in the country, the innkeeper had taken him in and advised him to be cautious with women, as it was because of women that Leon had faced so much hardship. While the boss had noticed Leon's recent changes, he understood that if Leon didn't want to share, no amount of questioning would help. The boss assured Leon that he only held the money for him, and he could retrieve it whenever he wanted. After their conversation, the innkeeper stood up to fetch the documents related to Leon's next assassination mission. Just then, Leon noticed a young man flirting with Mathilda. Seeing this, he rushed over and pulled Mathilda aside. He seriously instructed her to know how to protect herself and not to talk to strangers on the street. Despite her rebellious nature in many matters, Mathilda always obeyed Leon absolutely, for she had already fallen in love with Leon, her first crush. Suddenly, Mathilda confessed her feelings. "I think I've fallen in love with you, uncle. This is my first love, you know?" Leon, curious, questioned how Mathilda could know it was love if she had never experienced it before. Mathilda explained that she could feel it. Mathilda said that she used to have a stomach ache whenever she was stressed or scared, but since she met Leon, her stomach no longer hurt. It was because she sensed the warmth that Leon brought into her life. Leon felt joy that Mathilda's stomach issues had resolved, but he quickly used the excuse of needing to go on a mission to end the awkward conversation. However, as he stepped out of the room, he was engulfed by a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Leon realized that he, too, had feelings for Mathilda, yet he struggled to define whether it was love or a fatherly bond. This emotional confusion trapped him in a bittersweet struggle that he couldn't escape. Mathilda sat by the window, quietly watching Leon's figure fade away. She was determined to stay by his side forever, yet her innocent love felt like a kite severed from its string in a storm, lost in a ruthless world. After Leon left, Mathilda went downstairs to speak with the innkeeper. When the innkeeper asked what her father did for a living, Mathilda's answer stunned him. "He's my boyfriend." Later, Mathilda ventured to her old house. Taking advantage of the guard's inattention, she slipped through the security fence. She picked up her favorite stuffed rabbit from the ground and began prying up the floorboards to find the hidden money her father had stashed away. However, just as she was about to leave, she discovered a marking on the floor that indicated a body. Recognizing the size of the mark, Mathilda instantly knew it belonged to her younger brother. Pain washed over her, and she silently vowed to avenge him. Before she could escape safely, the men who had killed her younger brother, along with an investigative team, arrived at the scene. It turned out that her brother's death had drawn attention from higher-ups, who suspected that Stansfield had intentionally killed someone during a mission. To Mathilda's shock, Stansfield erupted in rage at the accusation. Hidden in a corner, Mathilda finally learned the identity of her brother's murderer. As she watched Stansfield get into a police car and drive away, Mathilda immediately hailed a taxi to follow him. When Stansfield entered the building of the Drug Enforcement Agency, Mathilda noted the location of his workplace. Back at home, her mind was consumed with thoughts of revenge. At that moment, Leon returned, injured. Mathilda quickly turned off the TV and reverted to her obedient self, hiding her turmoil. Leon remained oblivious to the changes in Mathilda. Leon bought Mathilda a lovely pink dress, but at that moment, she could no longer find joy in it. Just then, the innkeeper knocked on their door, requesting to speak with Leon. Though the innkeeper couldn't interfere in their relationship, he had the authority to evict them from the inn. Poor Leon, who hadn't even had time to clean his wounds, had to hurriedly take Mathilda to find a new place to stay. Once they arrived at their new location, Leon suppressed his pain to stitch patch up his injury. He then calmly approached Mathilda, not wanting her to worry about him, as her life had already been filled with too much suffering. However, Mathilda placed $20,000 on the table and revealed Stansfield's workplace, expressing her desire to hire Leon to help her avenge her brother. Leon flatly refused her request. He handed Mathilda a gun and told her, "If you want revenge, do it yourself." Confused and hurt, Mathilda questioned why Leon wouldn't help her, why he didn't care about the man who had killed her entire family. Leon explained that revenge wasn't a good path. Once someone was killed, everything would change. Mathilda's life would be forever altered. Just as Leon had to sleep with one eye open, always aware that danger lurked nearby, Mathilda was unfazed by such worries. She declared, "I need love or death. If I can't have love, then let me die." Leon's anger flared up at her words. He demanded that Mathilda stop joking about such serious matters. In response, Mathilda suddenly had an idea. She unloaded the bullets from her gun and placed 3 into a 4-chamber magazine. Then she turned to Leon and said, "If I win, you have to stay by my side for eternity." Leon replied, "Then you're sure to lose, because I heard the click of the bullets." But Mathilda didn't care. She wanted to know what Leon would do after she was gone. Leon replied that he wouldn't do anything at all. This statement pierced Mathilda's heart deeply. She hoped Leon wasn't lying, truly wishing that, deep down, he didn't harbor feelings for her. Because if he did care even a little, he would regret not expressing it when the moment came. Without hesitation, Mathilda pointed the gun at her own head in front of Leon. His instinct to stop her revealed his choice. Leon could no longer pretend to ignore Mathilda's feelings, nor could he act as if he didn't care about her. In that moment, Leon completely surrendered to Mathilda's determination. Leon took Mathilda to meet the boss, who was furious to see a young girl accompanying him. Leon explained that he needed an assistant due to his injury. Despite his irritation, the boss reluctantly accepted the situation. From that point on, whenever Leon went on a mission, he brought Mathilda along. Their teamwork proved to be exceptionally effective. Leon would disable the anti-theft locks on doors, while Mathilda played the role of a lost little girl, knocking on doors to gain entry. This unexpected tactic caught their assassination targets off guard, allowing them to open the door without suspicion. This particular mission involved taking out a drug lord. However, rather than attacking immediately, Leon instructed the drug lord to step aside and let Mathilda practice with a toy gun first. He taught her that her first shot should incapacitate the target, while the second shot would finish the job. Importantly, he emphasized that she must never shoot the target in the face. Damaging the face would prevent identification, which would complicate reporting back to their employer. As Leon and Mathilda discussed their strategy, the drug lord stood frozen. Just as the drug lord thought Leon and Mathilda were merely trying to intimidate him, Leon swiftly took him down without a word. However, after completing the mission, Mathilda didn't rush to leave. Instead, she set fire to all the drugs. She recalled Leon's principle of not harming women and children, and she recognized that these drugs could destroy countless families. This was the first lesson Mathilda imparted to Leon about maintaining professional integrity. To celebrate Mathilda's successful first mission, Leon took her to a restaurant for wines. But Mathilda, with her playful spirit, suggested that rather than toasting, a kiss would be a better reward. Before Leon could respond, she leaned in and planted a kiss on his cheek. The unexpected gesture made Leon blush fiercely. His flustered expression only made Mathilda giggle, and the curious glances from other patrons intensified his embarrassment. From that day on, Leon and Mathilda grew increasingly in sync in their operations. Mathilda even began to imitate Leon by wearing a small round hat. This duo became infamous, dismantling drug production sites one after another, striking fear into the hearts of the drug traffickers. However, that day, they faced a particularly stubborn adversary. No matter what Mathilda said, the target refused to open the door. At a critical moment, Leon suddenly heard the sound of a gun being loaded from inside the room. His quick reflexes saved Mathilda once again. Following this, Leon taught her another important lesson. When dealing with a stubborn target, it's best to resolve the situation swiftly and not get drawn into pointless banter. Without hesitation, Leon tossed a grenade into the room. The target, who had been shouting defiantly just moments before, was instantly reduced to ashes by the explosion. This dangerous mission left Leon deep in thought about his life as a hitman, where every day could be his last. Acknowledging the precariousness of his existence, he approached the boss and stated, "If anything happens to me, please give all my money to Mathilda." Knowing he couldn't change Leon's mind, reluctantly agreed. From that day forward, Leon stopped taking Mathilda on missions. Whenever she questioned him, he would insist that the upcoming tasks were too risky and difficult. Mathilda sensed he was merely making excuses and felt abandoned once more. Little did she know, Leon was only trying to protect her from danger, something she would never fully understand. Seizing the opportunity while Leon was on a mission, Mathilda's blinded desire for revenge prompted her to sneak out. She decided to track down Stansfield herself to avenge her younger brother. Following him into an office building, Mathilda's disguise was clumsy, and Stansfield quickly noticed her trailing him. To confirm his suspicion, he led Mathilda into a restroom where she remained unaware of the impending danger. Stansfield stepped in front of the mirror and paused, pulling out a pill and popping it into his mouth, his favorite ritual before starting a massacre. He calmly instructed Mathilda to place her bag on the ground. Terrified, Mathilda obeyed without thinking, forgetting that her bag was filled with weapons. friends. Stansfield asked why she was following him, to which Mathilda replied, "You killed my younger brother." Upon hearing this, Stansfield pretended to apologize, but his demeanor shifted as he asked if she wanted to see her younger brother. At that moment, Mathilda's panic reached its peak, and regret flooded in. It was only when faced with death that one truly begins to value life. As Stansfield aimed his gun at her, just as he was about to pull the trigger, one of his henchmen burst in, interrupting the grim scene. The henchman reported that a lone assassin had infiltrated Stansfield's drug den. This assassin moved with alarming speed, taking down two of Stansfield's most trusted lackeys in less seconds. Understanding the assassin's purpose was to rescue Mathilda, Stansfield's expression changed. Then, when Leon returned home, he discovered the letter Mathilda had left behind. In it, she expressed her desire to avenge her younger brother and had placed $20,000 on the table as a fee for Leon to assassinate Stansfield should she fail. Back in the present, Stansfield decided to keep Mathilda alive temporarily as a hostage. In a twist of fate, Leon once again saved Mathilda from the clutches of death. He charged into the government building, dispatching all the guards in an instant. Upon reaching Stansfield's office, Leon fired 2 quick shots, eliminating the henchman guarding Mathilda. In an instant, Mathilda rushed into Leon's arms. This time, he didn't push her away. Instead, he felt immense relief that he hadn't lost her. Mathilda wore the pink dress Leon had given her, and he was taken aback by how beautiful she looked, like an angel. In that moment, Mathilda resolved to repay Leon's act of saving her with her beauty. The atmosphere around them became charged with intensity, yet Leon steadfastly rejected her advances. Curious about his reluctance, Mathilda prompted him to share his past. Leon opened up about his pain. At 19, he had fallen in love with a girl whose father vehemently opposed their relationship. The disparity between their social statuses, she from a wealthy family and Leon, just a poor boy, didn't deter her commitment to him. Tragically, her father, unable to bear the situation, shot his own daughter. Despite his power, he labeled her death as an accident. Overwhelmed with grief that night, Leon avenged her by killing her father. Afterward, he fled to America and became a hitman. For years, Leon had lived in darkness and solitude, believing that love had died with his girlfriend. Mathilda listened, her heart aching for Leon, gaining a new perspective on love. It was the first time she had seen him cry, and this moment of vulnerability struck a chord within her. Understanding his pain, Mathilda decided not to press him further. However, Mathilda wanted Leon to promise her one thing: she didn't want to see him sleeping on the sofa anymore. Gently, she coaxed the tense Leon to lie down on the soft bed. That night, they both enjoyed a peaceful sleep, while Stansfield was in a rage, seeking out Leon's boss. He placed his gun on the table in front of the boss, reminding him of their mutual respect in business. But today was different. Stansfield's men had met a gruesome end at Leon's hands, and he demanded information about Leon. Meanwhile, Leon awoke with a start from a nightmare, surprised to find he had never slept so soundly in years. Mathilda was getting ready to go out to buy milk for him. Leon reminded her to knock with the code when she returned. As he watched her leave, he stopped pretending. He had truly come to love sleeping in a bed. However, when Mathilda returned with the milk, she had no idea that Stansfield was watching her. Almost immediately, she was grabbed by Stansfield's henchmen and pulled into a hidden corner. Facing their interrogation, Mathilda quickly provided a fake knock code. At that moment, a special forces team was preparing to storm the room to assassinate Leon. They were strategically positioned throughout the hallway, and the leading officer began to knock out the long code. That situation enabled Leon to react swiftly to the impending danger. As 4 special forces operatives burst into the room, Leon, hidden in the shadows, began to close the door and prepare for battle. The room erupted into a fierce gunfight, and when the door swung open, the bodies of the 4 operatives were revealed. Stansfield immediately sensed that things had gone awry. He ordered his men to gather all forces. Before long, the entire team had arrived at the scene. However, even their numerical advantage posed no real threat to Leon. He shot the first officer who stepped through the door, then crouched down to fire at the officers outside. In the chaos, Leon was hit in the shoulder, but gritted his teeth against the pain, taking down the officer who shot him. His ghostly presence on the battlefield instilled fear in the remaining officers. One cautiously poked his head out to assess the situation, only to find Leon aiming a gun at him. Using the officer's life as leverage, Leon ordered the special forces to release Mathilda. He then instructed her to grab the axe from the wall. Shielding himself with the fallen officer's body, he planned to retreat through the same route they had entered. As they reached the door, Leon fired a shot at the fire sprinkler, causing a shower of water to pour down. He unleashed a barrage of bullets toward the special forces team, making the team leader believe that his men were being slaughtered. In a panic, they recklessly opened fire toward the entrance, completely unaware that they were walking into Leon's trap. At that moment, Leon used the axe to break through a vent cover on the wall. He carefully wrapped his beloved potted plant in his coat and lowered it down the ventilation shaft. It was now Mathilda's turn to escape, but she quickly realized that the vent was too small to accommodate Leon's larger frame. Leon urged Mathilda to go ahead and not to worry about him, but she stubbornly refused to leave him behind. Remaining calm, Leon reassured her that they wouldn't have a chance if they tried to escape together. He asked her to trust him, explaining that he had a significant amount of money deposited with his boss. After they escaped, they would retrieve the money and leave together. together. Meanwhile, the special forces had positioned heavy weaponry outside the door. At the command of their leader, a shell flew into the room, causing a devastating explosion. As the dust settled, the special forces stormed into the room, where they discovered a surviving comrade reaching out for help. Without hesitation, they rushed to rescue him. However, when they removed the mask, it turned out to be Leon in disguise. Fortunately, the team members didn't know each other well, allowing Leon to successfully blend in. Meanwhile, Stansfield, waiting downstairs, had grown impatient. He cursed the special forces, frustrated that with 200 men, they couldn't find one man and a girl. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, Stansfield decided to head upstairs himself. Just then, Stansfield spotted Leon blending in with the special forces. However, instead of exposing him, he moved to the entrance, dismissing the guards and hiding in the shadows, waiting for Leon to appear. Stansfield wanted to handle this thorn in his side personally. Meanwhile, Leon quickly slipped away from the special forces, heading downstairs toward the exit. Just one more door stood between him and a new life with Mathilda, far from the chaos of the city. As he envisioned their bright future, he became oblivious to the danger lurking behind him. Despite being a top assassin, he didn't hear the heavy footsteps approaching. As Leon reached the door, a gunshot rang out from behind him. He felt his consciousness fading, and he collapsed to the ground. Glancing in Mathilda's direction as she fled, he realized he could no longer fulfill his promise to her. But before he succumbed, Leon had one last important task. He handed Stansfield a gift, saying that was a present from Mathilda to Stansfield. As Stansfield opened his palm, he discovered the pin of a grenade. In his final breath, Leon had helped Mathilda seek revenge. After narrowly escaping, Mathilda sought out the boss. The wounds on his face made it clear that he had been forced to betray Leon. Now, he was ready to fulfill Leon's promise and hand over the money to Mathilda. However, seeing that Mathilda was still so young, he suggested holding on to the money until she came of age. But Mathilda declared that she didn't want the money. She only needed a job. When the boss asked what she wanted to do, Mathilda replied, "I can kill." His anger flared at the thought of a 12-year-old taking on such work. Leaving her boss's office, Mathilda wandered the streets like a lost puppy. Regret consumed her heart. Leon's sacrifice had pushed her toward maturity. After wrestling with her emotions, she finally awakened to the truths of life. Clutching Leon's potted plant, she returned to school. Mathilda recounted her harrowing experiences to the principal, insisting that if he didn't help her, she would die that night. Touched by her sincerity, the principal agreed to assist her. With that, Mathilda was given a chance to start anew. Finally, she planted Leon's beloved potted plant on the school lawn. Mathilda believed that soon enough, Leon's potted plant would take root, just as he had found his peace after a life of wandering. The film, though controversial, received high praise for its exploration of complex themes. Many criticized the unconventional relationship, fearing it could distort values. However, the narrative primarily delved into the mutual salvation of two lonely souls. True love was companionship and protection. Leon himself struggled to define his feelings for Mathilda. Was it love or a parental bond? Ultimately, even he couldn't pinpoint it, but on their journey toward redemption, such definitions became irrelevant. What mattered was that Mathilda taught Leon how to love, while he used that love to help her grow into maturity. In her poignant plea to the principal, Mathilda declared that without his help, she would die that night. Yet, deep down, she understood that with Stansfield's death, no one would pose a threat to her life anymore. Her words reflected a newfound understanding of life's truths, but at just 12 years old, she realized she couldn't face the world alone. Mathilda's life mirrored Leon's potted plant, both needing a nurturing environment and opportunities to thrive. The so-called love depicted in the film is a reflection of Mathilda's innocent naivety. It is neither her fault nor Leon's. If one were to pursue blame, it would ultimately fall on the audience. Only those who truly understand the essence of love can grasp profound connection between the assassin and the young girl. Thank you for joining me in exploring this remarkable film. Please share your thoughts and feelings about it in the comments. I look forward to seeing you in our future discussions on more films.